Hey, welcome to the Foster Fathers Podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Kyle.
And this is a podcast all about foster care, adoption, and fatherhood.
We hope that you feel welcome. We hope that you feel that you belong. And we're glad that you're here to share this time with us.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Foster Fathers Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle.
And I'm Chris.
Co-host, dude. I couldn't do this thing alone. I couldn't do this thing. By this thing, I'm not just talking about the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm talking about foster care.
Ooh, good intro.
I could not do it alone.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think we're going to spend the next 2 episodes talking about our stories individually.
Yeah.
A little bit more in detail.
Yeah.
And
You willing to go first?
sure, man, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bring the spotlight in closer, dude. We're having a grill session.
Come on in.
Okay, so we touched on it a little bit last time. Your name is?
My name's Chris.
Chris.
Married 10 years now, dude. Decade.
That was just last week? Last week?
Yeah,
2 weeks?
a decade under the influence. You know the reference?
No, I don't know. What does that mean?
Taking Back Sunday, dude? Come on now.
I'm not quite as emo as you.
Yeah, a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
Married 10 years now. It's kind of gnarly. We have 4 kids somehow. I don't even honestly know how that happened.
How many bio kids? How many?
2 and 2, dude.
Okay.
Well, 2 biological,
Okay.
1 fully adopted legally. That's our daughter, and 1 foster kid in the home, half sibling of our adopted daughter.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
kind of a gnarly situation. But let's back
Unexpected.
up. Yeah, let's back up here. First kid by happy accident.
Okay.
Like absolutely, our oldest is amazing.
Yeah.
And but he that started the chain of okay, we're gonna do this. Let's be parents.
Yeah.
Let's start a family. And
Yeah.
I've always probably wanted a big family. I come from
How
2
big?
kids.
How big?
I mean, I want to fill up a Volkswagen bus one day. My goal 1 is to own a Volkswagen bus, and 2, and have it to be full of kids. But my wife, we'll see.
Fully endorsed. I fully endorse. At least the Volkswagen bus
come on,
part,
let's go.
dude.
That'd be sick.
Absolutely. How about you and I fill it up with our kids?
That already
We
happened.
can leave the wives at home, and you and I can just cruise.
People might get the wrong idea, like they did at Chick-fil-A. We got mistaken for
It happened once. They thought we were a couple,
hey, nothing.
and we are.
A couple
Just
of dudes.
a couple of what's is the question. Yeah,
Couple of
absolutely.
bros.
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right, so 4 kids.
Yeah.
Oldest, and then we kind of just experienced some, I don't know, infertility, some miscarriages, some stuff that, why isn't this happening as easy as it did before? And I think that just opened the door for us to really consider something like adoption or foster care, something that.
So at that point, adoption wasn't.
No.
Adoption wasn't your first thought.
Well, Tracy and I dating pretty early on thought I'd love the idea of adoption. That was just a
Over
thing.
a decade.
Yeah.
That was over a decade ago.
Yeah, we're dating, so like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
That's something I feel like, I don't know, maybe that's on our heart one day.
Sweet.
But who knows what that means, right? So it's easy to say when you're 18 or 20 something, you know.
24, 22.
I've known families that have adopted siblings, and I'm like, dude, that's amazing.
Yeah.
The thought of giving someone a home that didn't have one before.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So then we were just like, okay, maybe that's our sign here, I guess. Let's just open those doors. And, as a dude, a miscarriage is a heavy thing, and I full well admit that I was terrible. My wife and I have since processed this, I believe, at least on my side.
Yeah.
But my wife had a few miscarriages, and it was like the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
And I was
hard.
like, yeah. And that is, if you're a dad, that's the absolute worst. If you're a husband, that's the absolute worst thing.
Yeah. Not be present.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we're Christians. And so for me, I was like, well, maybe God had something else in mind.
Right.
And that's like such a, I don't know, spiritual dummy way to say it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, fundamentally, I think you believe it.
Take away the pain of what your wife was experiencing. Yeah. She was experiencing.
And that, in a sense, was the worst thing I could say.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so God is the one who did this to me, and walk that out. But anyways,
so that answer.
Yeah. Which, I don't know. I think fundamentally I believe that, but it's not the right way to operate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Emotionally, I suppose.
Feelings are real.
And they
they're
need
not
to
always. They're not always.
Yeah, that's fair.
You got to be careful with them.
And so from there, we opened up the door of foster care and adoption. Well, really, foster care or adoption, really, obviously.
Really?
And
so foster care is something you knew about
barely.
all along?
Barely.
No. Okay.
barely, yeah.
But at least was a term you were aware
Yeah,
of.
totally. Yeah.
You started experiencing some, the standard expectation, first kid, second kid, third kid, kind of went off the rails, and you guys went foster care. Popped into your brain.
Yeah, foster care for what I don't even remember who brought it up, my wife or I.
Yeah.
And before you knew it, we were signed up for classes.
Yeah.
And we figured, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
We could sign up and see what happens, and we could always say no. And something that I know, at least in our state, Idaho, you can't declare foster to adopt. It's not something that you could say. But pretty early on, we have a great caseworker and social worker, and we've very quickly hinted if permanency was an option, we're really open to that.
Yeah.
And whether they do it on purpose or not, our cases, everyone that we got calls on were like rights look like they're in question for these kids, and permanency for life is an option here. Yeah. And so we need you to think about it. And I don't think you know this, but we got a call. Our son at the time was 3 turning 4, and we got a call for 2 kids, 3 and 6. And that was like a pretty, this is a lock on adoption.
Huh.
And we wrestled for 3 or 4 days, hard, just talking it over. That's all we could talk about. Yeah. And fundamentally just decided, and this isn't right or wrong, but for us it was, we want our son to be our oldest.
Okay.
And that was just
let's jump into that more another time, but that's it.
That was hard. Yeah. That was weird to think about, because on the other side of a phone call, we get these phone calls as a kid.
Bombarded with phone calls.
Yeah. And it's a kid.
We have 4 kids living in 1 bedroom. We still get bombarded with phone calls
and emails and text messages. I got a text message yesterday.
Yeah, we got one 2 days ago.
And I was like, oh, dude, I'm sorry. No. But on the other side of those phone calls, especially when you don't have a placement yet,
right?
Are kids.
Yeah.
And they were like, dude, this is
there are kids on the other side of that call. Yeah.
This is a lock, hypothetically, to have an adoptive family like you've asked for.
Yeah.
Why not? And we said no. And it was like, okay. And then, funny story, my wife went to Ohio, where she's from, with our son.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, dude, bachelor, dude. I want to go to movies, play golf, do whatever I want to do, hang out. What's everyone doing? I'm free, dude. I'm a bachelor. And we get a call, and it says, we get a call for a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old.
Wow.
And they're like, hey, not only rights are in question here, not that fully mattered to us, but we need a home for this people, and we need them now. And I go from bachelor week, dude, to single dad. I'm like, wait. And so I call my wife, and I go, dude, you're not going to believe this, but there's a placement, and it's our parameters.
So Tracy's in Ohio.
Oh, yeah. And so we are, I'm fielding this call, and it's it's a 2-year-old boy, 2.5-year-old boy, under our parameters.
Yeah.
And a 6-month-old little girl. And I'm like, Trace, this is what we were asking for.
Right.
So I gotta say yes. And she's like, you're gonna take these kids in by yourself for the first time?
Let me ask this. Sorry, not to totally interrupt, but that is my job as
the
interviewer.
I guess, huh?
Who's the more natural caretaker between you and Tracy?
I mean, if my wife hears this, I think I would think she would agree. I think it's me.
Okay.
No. Oh man, I'm about to get in trouble, dude.
Is it 50-50?
It probably is.
Mine's clear. I'm way more nurturing than Jessica. Jessica's great. She is an awesome mom. Yeah. But I'm much more, the stereotypical hug, hold, rock, likes to touch, likes to cuddle. Yeah. Those are more tendencies that I think that I struggle that I am natural with.
Yeah. My wife would say that I just have a higher capacity.
Yeah. Okay.
My wife is a capacity oriented individual. Yeah. She's so talented, amazing. but she's very aware of her limits, and I am not aware of my limits. Well, I'll be like, dude, why can't I do 16 different things at once? And then I'll come crashing down to earth exhausted, and she'll be like, well, duh.
Am I manic depressive? Oh, no, I just burnt myself out.
Yeah, I literally don't have the brain, the part of my life that goes, you should probably just pause a little bit. Even this, we have 4 kids each, and we're starting a podcast. Why would we do that? That's illogical.
And I called the placement worker the other day. I was like, hey, if you can't find a placement for that 4-year-old, we will take them just temporarily.
Kyle lives in a 2-bedroom.
Jessica.
Yeah.
Don't listen to this. I did not call her. I called her.
Well, and honestly, in our story, I took the 2 in.
Right.
And
okay, so Tracy, you ended up taking them.
Yeah, so she's
same day as they called you?
Oh yeah, I forgot that part of the story. Well, and then my wife calls me like a couple hours later and goes, hey, I'm going to go hang out with my girls. My wife grew up in Ohio and has some of her best friends. They're all there. She's like, I'm going out with the girls.
You're going to want to leave me close because this is when it gets good.
Well, she goes, hey, I'm about to get wine with the girls, but I'm late. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes,
you need like Uber? Like the Uber was late?
Like you're just what? Like, no. She's like, no. I think I'm pregnant. After years of trying. It's like we're not even thinking about it, and it's like boom. So we go from 1 to 4 kids, really.
We had some friends probably 6 years back.
Yeah.
Same thing, trying. They bring in 2 foster kids. Boom. Pregnant.
There's some country song that everyone was like, you're like that one song. So let's do it.
There's a lot of country songs. There's not just one country song.
Well, there's like one about like get pregnant and adopting at the same time. Anyways.
Okay.
So we get these 2 kids in our house.
Tracy's on the phone with you.
Yep. And I'm in Fred Meyer, which is a local establishment here.
Yeah.
Department store.
Very local too.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? So we have 1 kid, and now we're taking in 2, and now we're pregnant. That's our first case. So we're like, okay. That's stupidly hilarious.
1 to 4 in the span of 24 hours.
So we took the 2 in. Tracy's home in Ohio for another week, and so I'm bonding with these 2 kids, like without my wife. Kind of a gnarly experience. Taking them to
How you
daycare.
Took time off work? How'd that work out?
I don't even think I did. I think they had
the weekend.
Yeah, they had their daycare all situated. Yeah, I don't work on Friday, so I got them on a Friday. So I had Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I just took them with me to church, and I checked them in. I'm like, who are these kids? These are the kids. I don't know. They're kids.
It starts to become normal though. At first, everyone's like, "Wait, you didn't have any kids, and now you have 2 kids," and then they start to just expect it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's gonna be kids
Randos.
coming along.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's awesome. And so, honestly, the 2 kids were great, but we had kind of a hard time with the older boy. And 6 months and 2.5 years old in a foster care situation is a gulf of time. Yeah. And so there's a whole bunch of trauma that's manifesting in this 2-year-old kid. Yeah. And so he's hyperactive. He's gnarly, bouncing off the walls. Yeah. He's,
disruptive, dysregulated.
There's a part of that's just a 2-year-old. Like I'm very aware of that. I have one currently.
One. I'm not aware of it. I've never had I've never had a 2.5-year-old.
That's
we'll
talk about it in your episode.
Our youngest was a month before 3, but
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So that situation is hard, and then bringing in our son home.
Right.
He comes home after a week with grandma and mom, and now there's kids, and my kid is amazing. Like Levi is so social. My son, my biological son, and so social. He's like, I have buddies at home now. It's amazing. Yeah. And. Yeah, that's wild to relive some of those situations.
Were you able to, and I mean, I say this question realizing you can't fully prepare a 4-year-old was what he was at that time. Yep. But did you prepare him? I mean, what did that conversation look? I mean, I guess Tracy, at the very end, Tracy was saying, hey, when we get home, there's going to be siblings here. There's going to be other kids living in our house. Yeah. But what did that conversation look like?
I mean, explaining adoption and foster care to a 4-year-old is quite the task. Yeah. But essentially, we fundamentally said this kid has no home. Right. And we'd like to give him one. Yeah. And so I say this when it comes to how could you do that to your kids?
That's it.
Yeah. We get that question because for whatever reason now we are people ask about everything about foster care and adoption too. Yeah. I couldn't do that to my kids, and I would say, like, I mean, I'm so proud of the son I've raised because of what he's experienced and the perspective he has on life.
Right.
I mean, what other now 6-year-old knows there are people that need tremendous help at his age?
Right. The perspective that brings.
Yeah, and he's definitely got his shortcomings for sure. I mean, my kid's not perfect. I'm not saying that.
Turns out he's human.
But yeah, turns out he's human. But
Me too.
but we had a hard go there. There were a few seasons where he was violent. He was violent with our son. You know, a little bit more aggressive, I should say.
2.5-year-old, 3-year-old.
With our and trying to talk through, like, he doesn't fully understand what he's doing, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, playing that whole situation out. Eventually, we end up on a court hearing call. We've known and talked to mom pretty regularly, and there's a dad in the picture for the older boy.
Okay.
The dad, for whatever reason, maybe
how far in are we at this point?
6 months,
okay.
8 months in.
Okay.
And dad's aware. Dad was made aware. Dad finally took a paternity test. Thankfully, after he figured out that, I have a son, he did the right thing.
Good for him.
And said, okay, if that's my son, I'm coming. Telling my boss.
Right.
We have a court hearing on Zoom, and I got to peel off for that. But then I also, like, very realistically could have to leave and do whatever the judge has told me to do.
Yeah.
And so we're on that court call. Mom's in the Zoom call, guardian ad litem, mom, everybody.
Right. Just for people listening, because there will be some people who may not be in the foster care system, and some people from other states, places that don't know. What is a guardian ad litem?
An advocate for the kids. So independent of everyone.
Third party, not paid, not state.
Visits the kids once a month, checks in on their well-being, and doesn't even, honestly, for lack of a better term, care about the mom or foster parents.
Right. Just about the kid.
And then when the judge asks, that person writes a write-up for the kid on his behalf or her behalf.
Honestly, it is such a thankless position.
It's unreal.
I look at these. We've had two fellers that have been our kids' court advocates and guardian ad litems, and I mean, people know we do foster care. I get applauded. I get patted on the back. I get recommended.
Which we love.
Blah blah blah. But these guys, nobody knows. Yeah. Nobody knows what they're doing, and they're doing it. And they
pro bono.
Yeah, not for totally free, and it can be a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, fortunately, our cases have been pretty simple. You know, but on there's a couple moments it was busier, and these guys were coming to visit us. This one guy on our first case, at one point was visiting us every week, sometimes twice a week, just because there's so many changes happening at once. But sorry, keep going. Guardian ad litem.
So we're all on this Zoom, and essentially it comes to the point where dad's like, okay, I'm ready. I've done everything I need to do. I'd like to take my son back.
Wow.
And we're like, we'd kind of have a few days notice.
So he was dad of the son, not dad of the daughter.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Got it.
Good clarity.
Yep.
And so he's ready to go. And we had our caseworker gave us heads up. It looks like everything's shaping up to where he will go home. So maybe begin to pack the bags.
Wow.
Which is a weird feeling.
Yeah.
That same Zoom meeting, I am giving the boy back.
Yeah.
I'm about to hop in the car and drive. He lives 4 hours away. I'm driving 2 hours away. We're meeting halfway.
Wow. Yeah.
It's funny in the moment. You don't really think about everything that's happening.
Yeah.
You're just rolling.
Right.
Especially me, as the dad.
Yeah.
Like, what do we got to do? My wife is like feeling every emotion, like the weight of the world, and I'm like, all right, time to load up. Let's go.
You have to be flexible.
Yeah.
You have to be flexible.
Totally. So in one moment we gained a daughter, but we lost a kid.
Right.
And so since then we've reunited him. I drove him 2 hours away, Twin Falls, where
that was your kid. I mean, that was your kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I'll get into some therapy I had to do after, but because we're dudes and I have no idea what's happening to us emotionally. But I'm driving, and if you know me, I like to Facebook Marketplace and eBay and side hustle. I'm trying to be Gary V. But we drove to a gas station. My mom, of all people, came with me. My mom, Tracy had the other kids, and my mom is like, what are we doing? And we're like, we're reuniting him.
Right.
And I thought maybe this is a moment. He's got like 3 or 4 bags to his name, some clothes. He's 2.5.
Right.
And we drive 2 hours away. He falls asleep. So like our last moments, he's just zonked in the back.
Wow.
And then I wake him up and I'm like, hey buddy, here's your dad. And like give him a hug. And the dad shakes my hand and says, thanks. And then leaves. It's like a Facebook Marketplace meetup. That's like what I felt like.
Wow. Maybe the first time this kid had ever met this guy.
Yeah, probably. Well, I guess we had facilitated a few meetings. He had made the trip.
That's right.
He came out, and Guardian Ad Litem came.
That's right.
And met us at a park, and we all we had some McDonald's, dude.
Okay.
There's some McDonald's.
Yeah.
And just hung out. So
little product placement. Is that product placement?
Dude, I am loving it. Just kidding. Trying to get that bag, dude. That bag of double cheeseburger.
Yeah.
What a stupid thing to say. Okay.
You got to make it a little fun, dude.
Yeah.
It's real here. We're real.
So fast forward back.
Yeah.
So we come home.
Drop this little dude off.
My wife is in mourning.
Yeah.
And I maybe didn't even know that I was, but
right.
It had been complicated for me because, like I mentioned earlier, he was a little violent. He was a really tough kid because of some of the trauma.
Right.
You can't really project that on the kid.
Right.
He had nothing to do.
Like it's not him. It's his trauma.
But it's just he was rough.
Yeah.
Everything was hard.
Absolutely.
Bedtime was the worst. He would lash out, act out, whatever. Yeah. So then I ended up in therapy for a little bit. In a good way. I think it's a very healthy thing. And so
it's necessary.
Oh yeah,
it's necessary. I need to get back in.
Yeah. We all do. BetterHelp sponsor us. That's the big one. There.
We're just fishing. We're fishing.
We're just
Bass Pro Shops.
Nike.
Mine was at least fitting.
Yeah, dude.
eBay. I said fishing and then Bass Pro.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyways.
Can you adopt kids through? No, that's a bad joke. Through eBay. I can't say that. Anyways, so we come home and
if they'll let us foster, they'll let anybody foster.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point.
All right, your turn.
So we
Tracy's in mourning.
Yeah, I ended up honestly just having hard moments I didn't even know.
I mean, this was your first run through,
and honestly, in a lot of ways, my first grief.
Right. Significant.
Yeah. And since then, I've had some moments, but
I mean, people die, right?
Yeah.
You
and I hadn't even had that happen.
Okay.
So
you expect grandparents, aunts, uncles, even along the way, maybe some friends.
Sure.
We have stories and scenarios. There's not stories and scenarios for, hey, there's this kid, regardless of how he behaved, he lived under my roof for 6-7 months.
Yeah.
And now he's gone. He was a daily part of your life.
Well,
and now he's gone.
And in his being, it was loud. It was chaotic sometimes. And you come home and that's just not there anymore.
Right.
Our biological kid, pretty well behaved kid, pretty chill, and a baby. Right. It's quiet.
Right.
That's crazy.
There's a gap.
Yeah. So I ended up in therapy for a little bit, processing some of that.
Any big takeaways?
Yeah, absolutely.
What was the lesson? Could you give me 2 lessons learned?
My big struggle was why I was doing something good hard. And my heart was good. I wanted to do something good. Yeah. Why was it hard?
Right.
And it was just a flawed thought of that something good should be easy.
Right.
That's not always true.
Yeah, you earned your reward.
Yeah, and then the other thought was you did a good thing. Someone needed help and you provided help.
Yeah.
Like that's like boil it all the way down. You need to understand that a child needed help.
Right.
If he was falling, he would have hit the ground had you not caught him.
Right.
And that was a relief in a way. I don't know how to describe that.
Okay.
Anyway, so fast forward, my wife is pregnant, grieving.
Yeah.
And we now have clarity in this fact that we are now legally adopting our daughter.
Right.
And so
a high and a low.
Absolutely. That's a really good way to put it. Yeah. All at once.
Right.
And so we
very paradoxical situation.
Which is foster care, probably.
Yeah, complicated.
Yeah, and so we then walked this out, and I think we had a few more months in our state. We have to do 6 months in home before we can legally adopt.
Yep.
And so we had
that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, well, 6 months since the court for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we had essentially 6 months.
Okay.
And so we ended up adopting in November a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And the day we adopted her, she was the most pissy she's ever been. She was like just not having it. The spectacle that it was.
Yeah.
It was so funny. That's our daughter, really. But yeah.
I genuinely believe, and this is probably backed by science.
Science, bro.
But kids don't have logical thought. Right? Even adults, some adults don't have logical thought, but kids, it's an area of their brain that's not developed yet.
Absolutely.
So it's all off of feelings.
Yeah.
So when you introduce big feelings, big situations, they react purely off of those feelings.
Sure.
And so in that situation, I'm sure, she's not experiencing logic of this is the best day. This means I have security. My history, I have security, and I have family, and I have love. Guaranteed for the rest of my life. She's just feels, and it just disrupted her whole being.
Yeah.
I mean, I guarantee it.
Yeah. So that's I mean how we got a daughter, really.
Yeah.
And and like thankfully she has been other than a pretty sassy little girl, you've experienced this.
Yeah.
She is devoid of a lot of.
But see, I'm like uncle, so I just get all the fun experiences.
She does have
so cute.
She has some dysregulation stuff that we have a couple ahead of us. Similar situation, and we did have drug exposure with her in the womb, so that may play itself out eventually. Yeah. But as of now, other than a few moments, she's a normal kid.
Yeah.
And I use the word normal loosely, but and then so here we are, happy family of now 4, soon to be 5, with Ezra, our second biological kid, is born. So our daughter's a little bit older. Her biological second son is a little bit younger than her, and then
adoption was before.
No, we had a little guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we have.
I was there for that. It felt like a whirlwind for me. I can't imagine how it felt for you. Yeah.
So there you go. And then, so we're a family of 3 cruising along, trying to figure out what foster care looks like moving forward from there. I mean, they kind of suggested we take about a year off of anything, an active live-in case. Mm-hmm. We could do respite if we want. Mm-hmm. We had been pretty involved in our church about helping others come to know foster care and all that stuff. And so, shortly after that, dude, I'm at work on a Wednesday. I remember this. And I get a call. I'm in a meeting. I get a call again. And I'm like, no, I'm busy. It's unlisted number or a number I don't recognize. And when you're a foster parent, that normally means someone to stay at your house. But then I get a call. I
have those numbers saved now, by the way. I mean, there's a few placement workers. I saved them.
You're smarter than me. I get a call, and then I decline. I'm doing something, and then I look at my handy dandy Apple Watch, and they go, "Dear Christopher, we just had a baby born, biologically related to your adopted daughter."
This is insane.
Yeah,
biologically related to your daughter.
Same mom. On a Tuesday.
Half brother.
Or on a Wednesday. Sorry, on a Wednesday.
Boy, girl, boy.
Little boy, yeah.
Half brother.
Yep.
Okay.
And they go, we need to know pretty quickly, please call us back what you'd like us to do. And so I call my wife. She doesn't answer. She's also in a work meeting.
So I know some of the lead up, but I'm just for bringing this information up. The Wednesday you got the call, did you have any idea that your baby's mama was pregnant?
Which is unreal.
Right.
That's a little bit of like, how did we not know that?
That's 10 months and nobody could disclose that information?
Yeah, that's like she obviously got pregnant outside of prison and then got incarcerated again.
Okay.
And then gave birth, and then about 24 hours later went back to jail.
You as an adoptive parent of a related sibling are first pick?
Yeah. Totally. And we're legally we're the same as the closest family you can,
right?
Because we have a sister.
First rights of refusal.
Yep. So they're like, we really need to know what you want to do. There are probably, I mean, I say this flippantly, but no, there's a long list of people who are looking for babies.
Right.
For whatever reason, whatever perception there is that's easier.
Right.
I can speak for myself that's not necessarily true. But
I think there's a more cohesive, complete feeling of having a baby.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you've never had a baby.
I've never had a baby.
Yeah. And you've
never had a kid below the age of 2.
Gnarly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then now we are currently in the midst of now back in contact with mom. Right. You know, it's raw and fresh right now.
When you went to pick up this littlest dude,
yeah,
did you get to see mom? No.
We've actually still never met her in person.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, but we walked in and we had to drive 4 hours to pick him up.
Okay. So you get a phone call on a Wednesday. It says by Thursday.
Well, we said, well, if our answer is yes. So we said yes. My wife in tears on the phone. I could hear her trembling.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the answer is yes, right? Like, absolutely. We didn't really tell anybody.
Yeah.
My parents were like, "Hey, Dad, I'm on the way. Guess what?" So we're on the way there, and then
the answer is yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I remember my wife saying, "I said, this is the situation that we said." Remember, we wrestled with what's next for us because my wife being a capacity woman, we're at the limit with 3 kids, especially the littles.
It's a lot.
And so for us to say yes to another baby is a capacity pusher.
Right.
And so we eventually say yes, obviously. I remember her saying, well, obviously, right, this is what we have. We have to be. Yeah. So we have a little guy with us still. That's 4 months ago now.
Yeah.
And that's us, dude.
Yeah.
So we're back in contact with mom.
Okay, so 4 kids living in your house.
And 2 dogs and a wife. And a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So I thought it'd be cool to spend, and I guess I'm teeing up my own question.
Yeah.
But what's the takeaway here? Yeah. I guess hearing my story, what's the takeaway for you? Like what is the like macro lesson? I'm trying to think of it for myself.
I mean, unexpected, the unexpectedness, and the demand to be flexible. Mm-hmm. I think the heart of just struggling to say no, it is good. It's one of those double-edged swords. One side is like cutting through and creating that pathway, and the other side is this might cut my head off. And like you were saying, you don't know where the back end, you don't know where the cliff's edge for Chris is. It's like Chris is like the little Wile E. Coyote. Running off a cliff's edge, and all of a sudden he's like 14 feet out.
You're like, oh, wait, what?
Oh, crud! And he just falls out of the air. That's there. And
I mean, I would say, if you're a foster dad and you're listening to this, be encouraged in the fact that when you're doing something good, it's still going to be hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's normal. Yeah. And I know that sounds probably super simplistic for most people. Yeah. But I needed to hear that doing something good that you maybe feel called to, led to, still requires a tremendous amount of
absolutely
hurt, pain.
Right. Yeah.
And it's hard to hear, but it's just, don't grow weary in doing good.
That paradoxical feeling that something so good can be so hard, right? That something, and we'll touch on this a bunch throughout this whole podcast, but it's not all beautiful.
But yet it is.
But yet it is, right? And but I mean the ugly backside is you gain a daughter, this lady loses a daughter.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm a touch of a realist or pessimist. Some people might say pessimist, although I do have a very optimistic disposition. But it's the things that I think about. It just stuck out to me is this feeling of losing one losing one kid, gaining one daughter. You know, losing a boy, gaining a daughter. But I also think within gaining that daughter that there's a broken situation that she's coming out of. And I just think that awareness is huge to have, you know, and necessary, and it makes it hard. Yeah, it makes it hard. There's there's no easy emotion. Yeah, and you're stuck in it a little bit, you know.
Well, here we are, dude. We're in the middle of it, so I'm sure you'll hear more about it. But I think that's a good place to end the episode today. Okay. So episode 2 is in the books, dude. Okay. Kyle's story's next. So like we said, if you're a foster father, obviously we'd love to have you like and subscribe and do all that stuff, you know, you're supposed to do. Yeah. But hopefully you found this useful. Maybe you're encouraged in your journey. If you have questions, I think we have an email, dude. fosterfatherspodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up. We'd love to know. We'd love to hear from you. Again, there's probably still only 2 of you listening. So thanks, wives and moms and everyone. Yeah. Thanks for listening. So,
Mom, you have my number, but for everybody else out there, give me a call.
It's 208